Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Liverpool Squad Talk on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. During the show, we'll be focusing on defenders, where we will assess who should stay, who should go, and which players Liverpool should target to strengthen the backline. So let's start the show with probably the biggest debate this season, in my opinion, and that's the future of our left backs. Now, I think we can all agree that neither Tsimikas or Robertson have played in flying colours this season, and it's an area that I think the team can strengthen. Hence, why we've been linked with a number of left backs in the last few months. The big question is who stays and who goes, as one of the left backs will need to make way for a new signing. Now, I've been pondering this question all season, and I've certainly flip flopped my answer from day to day. Some days I've gone with Tsimikas because I think he's shown a better level of consistency this season. Whenever he's played, I feel like his end product has improved in time. But then I think Robertson's leadership and experience could be vital for the squad. And you can't put a price on things like that. But also, if we were to sign a new left back, they will be learning the ropes with one of the best left backs in Liverpool's history, in my opinion, in Andy Robertson. So you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons when it comes to this big decision. It's going to be interesting what happens. So much so, Robertson actually made some comments about his future in a press conference a couple of days ago. Now I'll read the quote from the press conference, and it goes, what Robertson says, I think we've been linked with pretty much every left back in the world. But look, that's part and parcel of it. You play for one of the biggest clubs in the world and you've been very lucky. Well, I wouldn't put it down to luck, but I look back on these 8 years that I have had here as the starting left back at one of the best clubs in the world for that long. And that's something I'm very proud of. Your time comes. I don't think it's my time yet, or whatever happens with the club, and whether we do bring in somebody or we don't bring somebody in, then so be it. I think I'll always back myself. Now, not the most positive of comments there. He sounds a little defeated there, if I'm being honest with you, and he probably has some sort of expectation that he could be told to depart from the club this summer. I don't think that'll be the case, if I'm being brutally honest. In fact, I think he actually stays until his contract ends, which is next season, 2026. And I think Tsimikas will be the left back that will be sold this summer. But only time will tell in terms of what the future holds for both players. But in the meantime, let's present some potential left backs that Liverpool could target this season. Now, the first name, and it's no huge surprise because we've been strongly linked with this player for a number of months, and he seems to be the odds-on favourite to join the club this summer, and that is Milos Kerkez. So much so, there's been rumours circulating that yesterday evening that Liverpool are close to agreeing a 40 million deal for the Bournemouth left back. Now, whenever I've seen him play this season, I've been very impressed. Uh, the more I watch him, the more I feel like he's ready made for us. He can come into the team and pretty much have an instant impact. His stats this season so far: 32 appearances, 2 goals, and 5 assists. In terms of the way he plays, he's like a young Robbo, if I'm being brutally honest. And I really feel like he could excel in this team. So for me, he would be our first choice left back now. There was another player that I've been, shouting his name all season, which we'll discuss shortly. But I can't lie, I've been won over by Kirkes' eye-catching performances this season, and I feel like he suits the way we play. So I do expect Kirkes to be the one that we end up signing, but you never know. Just because there's strong rumors around his name, it doesn't necessarily mean that will be the case this summer. Another target that Liverpool could pursue is Ryan Aït-Nouri, very talented player, very technical, has great ability on the ball in terms of his passing range, decent shot on him as well. But I feel like he's more suited to playing a more of a left wing back role rather than as a left back, which is what we would predominantly play. So in Slott's team, I think he might be exposed defensively, and that could be a big issue for the way we set up. Now, in terms of his stats this season, 32 appearances, 4 goals, 5 assists, so not bad from a left back slash wing back there. Player I really like, just not sure if he's the one that we're going to pursue in the next window. Next player is Anthony Robinson, solid left back who has been one of the best performers in the Premier League this season. But unfortunately, he may not fit the FSG profile due to his age. He's currently 28 years of age, and I think the club would rather sign a young player who has time to grow and, from a business point of view, could have still on value, which is something they look into when they recruit players. In terms of his stats this season, he's made 30 appearances, no goals, but he's produced 10 assists, which is very, very impressive coming from a left back. Next player, Lewis, Hall, another standout left back in the Premier League this season. Really surprised as to why Chelsea sold him in the first place, but that's their loss and Newcastle's gain for now. And I think he's such a player. I rate him so highly that I think he will end up being the future left back for England. Solid all rounder, defends really well. Whenever we've played against him, he's definitely kept Salah quieter than normal from other left backs this season. So in terms of his performances this season, he's had 34 appearances, 0 goals, but 5 assists. So not a bad tally from the left back. Unfortunately, he's picked up an injury that rules him out for the next few months. So even if Liverpool wanted to sign him, I don't think it would be a wise decision to go for a player that's currently on the sideline. So probably a non-mover, but a player definitely to watch out for because I feel like he's got a big future in the game. Next player, Leif Davis. A very impressive debut campaign for the left back in the Premier League. Whenever I've seen him play for Ipswich Town, he looks very impressive, technically very good, and has a good delivery from the left flank. In terms of his stats, 28 appearances, 1 goal, 3 assists. Overall, a good young player, but in my opinion, I just don't think he's the right quality for Liverpool. But having said that, I do see another Premier League team signing him in the next window, with unfortunately Ipswich Town set to be relegated this season. Now, Joel Hatter, a player that I have mentioned on numerous occasions this season, and as you all know, I rate him very, very highly. I did a live watch along as part of my sort of exclusive series that I've titled Liverpool Scout Watch, where I watched Hato play for the Netherlands against Spain because there was a lot of players on show that have been linked with the club, the likes of Frimpong, Reinders, Xavi Simons, and of course Joe Hato. And then for Spain, you had Hoysen, you had Nico Williams, and even Pedro Porro, who's a player that I really like the look of as well. So about 7 players on show, so I thought why not do a watch along and not just view the game, actually speak about these players as they're performing. And for me, Frimpong was definitely a stand-up player, but in terms of Hato, he had a mixed afternoon. He gave the ball away for the first goal, and after that, he showed his resilience and improved as the game went on. He pretty much kept Lamine Yamal very quiet for large parts of the game, but then in the latter stages, he gets sent off for a late challenge on Lernerman. So an evening to forget for Hato, unfortunately. But one game aside, he's a very interesting profile. He's a left back that can play centre back. We've been linked with players in the last 12, 18 months where they've been predominantly left-footed players, but it's been more so a centre back that can play that odd game at left back. This is the reverse. This is a hybrid player. This is a left back that can play centre back. So he can play in a back three, he can play in a back four. very comfortable in possession. So if Slot wants to sign a more defensive-minded left back, I think Hato would have to be on top of that list. But I'm not sure if that's the profile that we're going to go for in this window. But I could be completely wrong. He visited Anfield a couple of months ago, so that sparked suggestions that he's Liverpool bound. Only time will tell if that is the case. In terms of his stats this season, 42 appearances, 3 goals, 6 assists. So not a bad tally from the young player there. Just recently turned 19, already captain of the Ice team. So it shows his maturity, it shows his leadership quality at such a tender age. So a player to look out for, whether he's Liverpool bound or not, it remains to be seen. You never know. It could be where we sign a left back and we also sign Hato as a centre back signing, a player that can play in multiple positions. So you can't really rule it out. So, you know, even if he's not regarded as the left back that we sign, he could be appointed as a centre back signing. But, only time will tell. Next player is Theo Hernandez. No need to speak about him too much. He's very well known for me on his heyday, probably one of the best left backs in Europe. But unfortunately, he's had issues on and off the field at AC Milan. And in fact, there's rumors circling that he could be leaving this summer. So I'm not sure if he's the type of character that Arsenal would want to bring into this young squad. But if he's available, he definitely needs to be looked at in terms of his transfer fee. It could range from like 40 to 60 million. So it would really depend on how much the club would want to pursue. But of course, Liverpool just don't sign players based on talent. It's the whole package as well. What does he bring in terms of his personality, his characteristics? Is he a team player? A lot of these things are, put into consideration. Of course, we've got a data team that looks at all of this stuff as well beforehand. So not sure if he's the right fit, but on paper, I think he's probably the best left back that I'm going to talk about on the show. So who knows? Let's see what the future holds for Theo Hernandez in terms of his performance this season. 39 games so far, 4 goals, 5 assists, so not a bad tally there from the left back. Another player that was linked with us a few months ago is Gutierrez, a very talented left back who I'm sure will remember as we faced Gutierrez in the Champions League earlier this season when we played Girona. For me, in terms of what I've seen from him, I think he ticks all the boxes. A very good player in terms of his dribbling ability, very technical. So much so he's actually played centre mid on a number of occasions. So I've seen, compilations of him playing very centrally and providing through balls, being very creative. So he's definitely got something about him, and I think he would be a great signing for Liverpool. He has a release clause of £30 million, but I think Girona would be willing to accept less if we were to negotiate a deal. However, it sounds too good to be true, right? Unfortunately, it is a little bit, as there's a big obstacle, and that is Real Madrid, who have a buyback clause for as little as £5 million. And they're in pursuit to sign a new left back this summer as their primary target. Alphonso Davies ended up signing a contract extension with Bayern Munich. So, in my opinion, he fits the bill for what we need, but I think he's destined to join Real Madrid next season. Another player here, Luca Netz, a very interesting profile here. Traditionally a left back, but he can play centre back if required. From the compilation videos I've seen of him, he looks a decent player. Very techy on the ball, has a decent shot on him, and has great pace on his crossing. But he's also an all-rounder in terms of, having a great engine and moving up and down the pitch. So very, very interesting profile. He's one to watch for me, if I'm being honest. I wouldn't be surprised if a number of clubs are linked with him in this summer. I mentioned earlier on about Robertson's future at the club. If Robertson leaves in 2026, we'll probably need another left back next summer. So maybe Luka Netz could be that guy challenging, if you're going based on the rumors, maybe challenging Kirkes next summer. Obviously, I'm going a bit too far ahead now, but looks like we'll be in the market for left back next season if, that is how it pans out with Robertson leaving on a free transfer. But this is a player I really like the look of, so I'm definitely going to be watching him this season and next season as well to see how he progresses. In terms of his stats, not played too many games, 19 appearances so far, 1 goal, 2 assists, but definitely check him out. A very talented player, and I feel like he's got a big future in the game. And the final left back to review is Daniel Svensson, a player that Liverpool were strongly linked with last summer, as he used to play for a Danish side called Nordsjælland. But currently, he's actually on loan at Borussia Dortmund. Really strange. You don't really expect a big team like Dortmund loaning a player from a Danish team, but that's how it goes, I guess. He just recently joined the club, in fact, in January. So Dortmund could sign the player on a permanent contract, or maybe they'd want to line him up for another loan move. So very unclear at this stage. But if I'm being honest, from what I've seen of him, doesn't move me too much. I feel like he's quite average on the ball, and I'm not sure. I'm not convinced that he's Liverpool quality. So for me, this one's a non-mover. In terms of his stats for Dortmund, 7 appearances, 0 goals, 0 assists. So not really actively involved in the team right now, but obviously early days for the player as he's only just recently joined. So these are my candidates. Some from the list that I gave. So you're probably thinking, Oz, like you're a bit on the fence. Why have you got two players on the screen? I'll explain why. So I've got Kirkers and Hatter. Now the reason I've got Kirkers is because the way we play football, I think he fits the two. Where he's an attack-minded fullback, but very good defensive as well. So an all-rounder. But I'm not sure if Arnold wants that type of fullback. I think he does, but you can't second guess a coach, who's, if you look at his history at Feyenoord, he always played a defensive left back in his team. So for Feyenoord, it used to be Hancho. He's a Slovakian fullback, I believe, or Slovenian. Apologies, I've forgotten which nation he plays for. Um, Let me Google it so I get him correctly. He is from Slovakia. So I got it right initially. So the Slovakian fullback. So um, he played more of an inverted role at times. So and Gutrida as well played on the left side on occasions as well. So is that a tactic that he might want to deploy for Liverpool next season, where you have a bit more of a defensive-minded fullback? So a Hatter for me would fit the bill there completely. Or do we go with what we have in the team in terms of what we're used to playing? And that would be Kirkers. Kirkers for me is like a young Robbo in terms of what he brings to the table. His traits are very similar to how Robbo played the game. A great crossing ability, very dynamic on the ball, but strong and aggressive in the tackle as well. So for me, if I was to choose an all-round left back, I'd go for Kirkis. But if Arsenal was looking for a more defensive-minded left back, then Hato would be the guy for me. But I think Kirkis is the one that will end up signing, which I'll be very happy. If we sign Hato, I'll be even more happy because I've been speaking about Hato for a long time. But either left backs for me would be good signings for the club. So drop a comment, let me know what you guys think of my selection here. Or do you have another player in mind? Or do you completely disagree? Do you think there's another left back that can definitely, fit the bill and take Liverpool forward in our team? So yeah, do let me know what you think. Now, let's move on to centre back. And let's speak about our captain, Virgil van Dijk. Now, his future is not any clearer as the days go on. Still no update, I guess, on his future. Last week, we heard PSG were very interested in signing the Dutch defender. In fact, there was speculation that he would be offered 800k a week salaries, I think £15 million contract for 2 years. But that was quickly dismissed by reps from PSG. And now we're hearing that there are positive signs that he will sign a new contract. This has been the tale of the season, where one day we're hearing good news and then next day we're hearing bad news about these contract extensions. And it's not just Van Dijk, it's Trent, and it's also Mohamed Salah as well. So honestly, at this stage, God knows what's happening with these contracts. But even if Van Dijk stays or leaves, I still believe the club need to sign at least one centre back. So here are some suggestions that I've come up with that I believe Liverpool could target in the summer. So we'll start with Osman Diomande. Now, for me, a very, very good player, powerful defender who can play in a back three or in a back four, can play right sided or left sided centre back. He can even play as a CDM if required. The very interesting thing about Diomande is that he has very similar traits to Konate in terms of his profile. So physique, the way he plays, he's very much like a Konate type player. So I think that's the profile that we need to sign in the squad rather than a left-footed centre back. Now, last time I was thinking maybe a left-footed centre back would provide that balance in our team. But as the season's gone on, I just feel like whenever Konate has not been in the team, we've missed his physicality in that back line. So having a player that's like for like or very similar to him would bode well for me, in my opinion. And I think if we were to sign Diomande, he would be great cover for Konate and Van Dijk. But at the same time, he can play alongside either of those defenders. So this would be my first choice centre back signing. Drop a comment, let me know what you guys think. Next player, Inacio, always linked with Liverpool every summer for the last 2, 3 years. Will it be this summer where he finally joins the club? I don't think that's the case. I think the ship has sailed for Inacio, as I don't think he is a centre back that we're after anymore. Now, in terms of his stats this season, 32 appearances, 5 goals, 3 assists. Look, he's still a decent player. Don't get me wrong. Very versatile. I just don't think he's on Liverpool's radar anymore. So we've probably gone on and presented a different shortlist of centre backs. So maybe he was a target 2, 3 years ago. I don't think he is anymore. Next player, Hincapié, another player that was strongly linked with the club last summer. But this is definitely a difficult deal to get done. He's not had the best of seasons so far, but last year he signed a new contract until 2029. So if we were to make an approach for him, it has to be a premium price, and I don't think we'll be willing to pursue him in that way. Um, his stats this season: 36 appearances, 3 goals, 1 assist. I don't think this is a starter for us. I don't think we'll go and pursue Hincapié this season, which is a shame. I do rate him. I think he's a very good centre back this season, and last season he's played more left back and wing back at times. So he's been utilized as more of a sort of utility player, I guess. But I don't think he will be a target for us in this window. Now, this player, very highly sought after, and rightly so, as he's had a fantastic season for Bournemouth. A very classy defender, reads the game really well. Beyond his years, to be fair, he's only 19 years of age. He has a release clause of £50 million, which, when you think of it, you're thinking, oh, that's a bit hefty, 50 million for a centre back. But if you look at the market, it's actually the going rate. So it's not crazy in terms of the fee there. Now, if we were to sign him, I wouldn't be mad at all. I do feel like he's a future centre back. I feel like will be dominating Europe for years to come. I think he's got something about him. He doesn't look like he's the quickest on and off the ball, but players don't really get past him much. So both footed as well, which I find very interesting. I watched him playing for Spain yesterday. He came off the bench to replace Kubasi, and I saw him passing the ball with left foot, right foot. I thought that's impressive. So uh, I don't know. Let's see how it goes, because as it stands, it looks like Kirkers is our you know first choice left back that we want to sign. He also plays for Bournemouth, so would Bournemouth be willing to let two players depart in the same window? The thing is, the Kirkes one, that's a negotiation there. We're trying to get a deal done. Hoyson, we just got to match that release clause. If we're really interested in him, then we just have to pay the cash up top and then take it from there. So who knows? It's ironic that we've got Richard Hughes as our director of football, and he's going back to his previous owners or previous employers, I should say, and he's trying to negotiate deals there. But look, if he gets these deals done, then you know they won't be bad deals, but we'll talk about that. If that was to get panned out. In terms of his performance this season, obviously the centre back, so we don't look too much at goals, but 27 appearances, 2 goals. But I do like the profile. I think he's a very, very interesting player. Another player that Liverpool was strongly linked with in the last window, and that is French defender Loic Bade. a player that I actually really like the look of. I watched him playing in League R a few years ago for Lens, I believe it was. We were actually linked with him at that time to be Matip's successor, but the move never materialized. He ended up going to Forest on loan. That didn't work out due to an injury that he picked up. Then he moved to Sevilla, and the rest is history. He's found his home there and has really played um, some good football since he's joined the Spanish club. Apparently, he was available for 25 million in the January window. I think Sevilla were going through some sort of financial crisis. They might still be in that sort of position. In terms of him being a target, good player. Don't get me wrong. I just feel like maybe we could do a bit better. And I don't want to sound harsh when I say that. If it was to be our signing, I wouldn't be overly disappointed. I just do feel like there's better defenders out there, but that's just my opinion. Um, Next defender, Antonio Silva. Now, this player was highly sought after and regarded as the next big thing in world football a few years ago. But unfortunately, he doesn't seem to have lived up to the hype and has digressed a little bit in this season. Excuse me. He was linked with a 90 million move a year or two ago. Now, if I'm being honest, Benfica would be very lucky to get half of that transfer fee now. I don't see him being one of our primary targets. And let's be honest, we should probably stay clear from negotiating any deals from Benfica because they've certainly made a mockery of us over the years. And I'm talking way back where, we signed a player called Lazar Markovic. I'm sure some of you remember for 50 million. That was a complete waste of money. And we also signed Darwin Nunes from there for almost a record fee. And yeah, look how that's worked out. So for me, probably stay away from Benfica in terms of acquiring any of their players because as soon as we make an approach, the price gets inflated. So yeah, maybe stay away for that one. Next centre back target is Jonathan Tah, a very solid centre back with great experience. Apparently, he's available on a free transfer. He hasn't signed a new contract. So if Liverpool don't want to spend money on a centre back, maybe this would be an ideal solution. But at the moment, it seems like he's being linked with a move to Barcelona or Bayern Munich. So I expect him to end up at one of those clubs. I don't think he fits the profile for us. He's 29 years of age, so decent centre back, but I don't feel like he's playing at his prime level. I feel like he's a player that's slowed down as well. So he's probably played his best a few years ago. So I don't feel like he will come into our team in his prime form. So for me, not the player to go for. Now, this target, very, very interesting profile. Schlotterbeck is a left-footed centre-back who is strong and aggressive in his defensive play, makes good tackles, has a great sort of IQ, reads the game very well, and play left back if required. I wouldn't classify him as a player that can play a number of games at left back, but if need be, then he could play there, in an emergency position. Now, I would personally prefer a right-footed centre back to join the club. I don't think a left-footed centre back is needed, especially if Van Dijk stays. And let's be honest, that is his role. He's our left-sided centre back, so no one is going to displace him unless it's someone of the highest quality, which I might touch upon in the show. But if we were to sign a player that can cover Van Dijk, Schlotterbeck could be a great option there. However, I don't know if he'll be content with coming into a team knowing that he's not going to be first choice. He's at a stage of his career right now where he's gained a lot of experience, but at the same time, he's probably, at an age where he wants to play week in, week out. He's actually, from what I've heard in terms of rumors, that he's going to get the captaincy for Dortmund if he stays at the club. So would he leave that project to join a team where, it's Liverpool? Of course, we're a big club, but you might not be a starter. You've got Van Dijk ahead of you. If he's got a new contract extension, he's not going to leave until that contract is done. So, are you willing to stay on the bench for 2, 3 years? Question marks. But for Liverpool, you have to go for these players because for me, this is a quality centre back. If he is to be brought in as cover for Van Dijk, I'm all for it. And according to recent rumors, he's actually available for 40 million. So if that is true, I think the club should look into this one as it could be a smart bit of business. So let's see what happens with Schlotterbeck. Next player, Mark Gay. Similar profile to Schlotterbeck, left-footed centre back, but the difference is Gay would cost an arm and a leg. Last summer, Newcastle made up to 5 bids. I can't remember. I lost count in terms of how many times they went in for the player. And I think the last bid that they made was close to 70, 75 million, which is outrageous to say it out loud because I don't think he's worth that money. And what's crazy about it as well, Palace rejected it. They were like, nope, he's not for sale till that is not the valuation that we have listed for the player. He's been linked with Liverpool again, and there's been rumors circulating recently that we've been in touch with his agency for a possible move this summer. In my opinion, decent defender, but for me, he's not a starter at Liverpool. I don't think he's Liverpool quality, especially when you're paying a premium price like that. I don't think that's the right deal for the club. So if Liverpool did want to sign a left-footed centre back to be cover for Van Dijk, then I think Schlotterbeck is the better profile, and that's the player I would go for rather than Gay. But for me, if Gay was to be the signing, it would be slightly underwhelming for me. There's also rumors circulating that with Konate, not signing his contract, does that mean he's out of the door because he's been linked with PSG and Real Madrid? I don't think that would be the case. But with Liverpool, you just never know. And what if Konate was to leave? Would Gahey be the one that comes in? For me, they are worlds apart. I don't see Gahey being in the same level as Konate. Some may disagree. I've heard people say they rate Gahey as much as Konate, maybe even higher, which is, you know, outrageous to say out loud. But that's not me. That's what I've heard on other platforms. Um, but yeah, for me, I don't think this would be the right move for the club. Now, this player, I'm sure you've heard me mention him in the past. Um, I did say I don't want us to target left-footed centre because I would prefer a right-footed one. But if we had the chance to sign this guy, I'm changing my opinion altogether because this player is the real deal. Even if Van Dijk stayed at the club, Van Dijk would have to shift over as a right-sided centre-back so Bastoni can play on the left side because he's, of course, left-footed. That's how much I rate him as a player. But this feels like a bit of a pipe dream. Having said that, you can't believe everything you read. But there has been some rumors circulating in Italy suggesting that Liverpool are in the hunt for Bastoni, and contacts have been made with regards to a 63 million move this summer. Now, if this is true, wow. First of all, I'm doing a instant reaction video, and we'll be talking about him in a lot more detail. But secondly, that would be a statement signing from Liverpool. It really would. Plus, if you look at on a personal basis for him, he'll be reunited with his best mate, which is Federico Chiesa. So win-win for everyone. But if I step away from the clouds right now, I don't think this is a realistic signing. He just seems like a player that is content with remaining in Italy and may not want to, pursue another league in that manner. But people probably said that about Chiesa, so you just never know. But if I was to say, I have a dream signing, Bastoni would be the guy. So yeah, we'll see. Now, my centre back candidates. Now you're thinking I'm on the fence again, just like I was with the left back. Why have we got two players here? So I just briefly mentioned Bastoni would be the dream signing for me if we were in the market for him. I just don't know if it's a realistic option, and it would also depend on Van Dijk's future. Even if Van Dijk was to stay, I do feel like they would form a great partnership. But if Van Dijk was to leave, I would want Liverpool to go big and go for someone like Bastoni because to replace Van Dijk, you can't get a young and up and coming centre. In my opinion, you need to get someone that is established and can come into the team and hit the ground running straight away. So Bastoni would be that dream signing. But if Van Dijk was to stay and we were to make an addition to the squad, I think Diomande would be the perfect profile for us. I think he would complement Van Dijk and Konate, of course, being right-footed, but he could play alongside Kwanzaa. And I would still want Joe Gomez to stay. So that would be 5 centre backs at the club. So you're probably thinking that's a lot of centre backs. But this season has shown that we've had quite a few injuries in that department. So five centre back for me seems like the right amount to have. And Arsenal will need to change that thinking of having a smaller squad. We're trying to go for all competitions, so it's important for us to have 25 real strong players in the squad rather than having 18 and then the remainder of the squad is youth players. I don't really want that. So yeah, so these would be my candidates. It will just depend on the situation with Van Dijk. Once we get clarity, then I can definitely say this is the guy that I want. But these two players would fit the profile that I think Liverpool should be looking at in the window. Oh, let me have a sip of water because this is a big talking point right now from last night and today, and that is Trent Alexander-Arnold. The big question is, does he stay or does he leave? Now, instant reaction would be, who knows? Because I think most of us fans are expecting Trent to leave. Let's not be around the bush. Maybe it's due to the lack of noise coming from Trent and his camp, but also with Real Madrid showing the most interest in the player, they're going to use every tactic in the book to try and get their man. So whether that's to disrupt the player to the how he's playing this season or to be a nuisance for the club, which is of course Liverpool, they're going to use every tactic in the book to do that. And that's how they acquire their players, especially when they're trying to sign players on a free transfer. And, if rumors are to believe, apparently he's 99% on the verge of signing for Real Madrid next season. That's the rumor, according to Marca. But Marca is not known to be that reliable. They've been known to be the media outlet that, let's be honest, spreads a lot of BS around. And of course, they're probably on the clock with clubs like Real Madrid and Barcelona to try and, rattle the feathers and try and help the league get certain talent into their country. And that's probably what's happening with Trent Alexander-Arnold. But who knows? Because yesterday, shout out to Dave OC Cop. He tweeted this statement with regards to Trent's future at the club. The tweet says Liverpool are continuing talks with Trent Alexander-Arnold. The delay is not solely down to finances. Considerations are centered around the competitiveness of the team, amongst other factors, and the future direction that the team will be going in. So you're getting mixed reports there. You're getting one side saying that he could stay. There are negotiations. What the other side saying 90% done. He's off to Real Madrid. So similar to the Van Dijk thing, who do you believe? Who knows? Only God knows. If I'm being brutally honest, um, because with Trent, I always thought it was more about the ambition rather than the finance aspect, which probably sounds crazy to some people. But I've heard him speak about his legacy in several interviews, and he's very big on that. For him, it's not just about the financial gain. He wants to be remembered more than a footballer. He wants to be remembered as an icon because, let's be honest, he is a generational footballer. So I feel like that's the path that he's going into. So he's probably speaking to the people above into the FSG and trying to find out what's their plan for the club. Are they going to, go strong in the market and acquire top quality players? Are they going to show ambition, which they haven't done over the years? They will present that project to Trent, and if he's convinced, then he'll stay. I feel like he's on the verge of signing for Real Madrid. If I'm being brutally honest, that's just the gut feeling I have. Um, Only time will tell. Honestly, we really don't know what the case will be for Trent Alexander-Arnold. Um, from a financial point of view, I think the club would offer him the same amount of money that I believe Reece James earns. I think currently Trent earns 180K a week. Reece James earns about 250. So I think he can probably earn 260, and that's probably the highest paid a right back is receiving in the league for sure. I don't know about in world football. Um, but Trent's requirements might be completely different. He might be asking for the same salary as Van Dijk or Mohamed Salah. So, if that is the case, then that's quite unrealistic for FSG to accept. So they might be willing to move on and find another right back for next season. So similar to the Van Dijk situation, let's assess the right back market and see who could be a valuable replacement if Trent Alexander-Arnold was to depart. A familiar face, I'm sure. He would have been my dream signing to replace Trent Alexander-Arnold on the basis that I believe they share very similar quality in terms of how they play, and Hakimi has been playing at the highest level for a number of years, so he was pretty much coming to the team and hit the ground running straight away. But unfortunately, this is no longer a realistic target, as he's just signed a new contract with PSG. But to make it worse, apparently Hakimi was seen placing a PSG flag in the middle of the pitch at Anfield when we faced them last week in our Champions League encounter. I don't know if he was dancing around it or whatnot, but the Anfield faithful were not happy with what he was doing. I didn't see it personally, but there were a lot of fans spoke about after the game, and yeah, they looked really peed off. So if he's doing stupid things like that, yeah, let's disregard him as a serious option altogether. A player that Liverpool have been linked with very strongly, and that is Wesley from Flamengo, a player that is up and coming in that part of the world. I've seen a few compilations of him, and he looks very decent on the ball, especially from an attacker point of view. I would have some slight reservations in his defensive ability, but I've not seen him play 90 minutes, on a regular basis. So that's maybe something I'll try and do. Try and watch a game and see how he performs in those fixtures, so I can have a better outlook. But I'll probably only do that if I know we're seriously trying to pursue a player. But we have been linked with him in the last 2, 3 months, so maybe he is on the radar for us. Pedro, of course, a name we're all familiar with. On paper, I'd probably say this is probably my first choice to replace Trent. He's got decent experience over his career, currently planning his trade in the Premier League with Tottenham. So, he's ready made. He can come into the team and won't require any settling in time. He can hit the ground running straight away. And whenever I've seen him play for Tottenham, he's looked very impressive. Good all rounder, defensively sound, and can score bangers as well on occasion. This season, 41 appearances, 2 goals, 7 assists. So with Tottenham being in the bottom half of the table, this could be the perfect time to prize away one of their best players. But I think he would cost a bit. Let's be honest. We're dealing with Daniel Levy, so negotiating a deal with him, it's not going to be light work. We're going to have to add a few millions on top because he's not going to take a lowball offer from us. So because of the club that we're dealing with, I'm not too positive that this would be a realistic signing. I think they'd want like 50, 60 million pounds, and I don't know Liverpool would want to spend that much on a right back. Um, Maybe Liverpool will go on to pursue a player that's of a younger profile and a bit more easy to attain in terms of his transfer fee. But on paper, I think Pedro Pro would fit the profile that I believe the club should be looking at in the summer. But watch your space; you never know. Now, this player has been spoken about in recent weeks. With being linked with Liverpool, and he's been getting rave reviews as well. And that is Givario Reed, a young prospect with huge potential. Givario Reed is currently the right back at Arne Slot's former team, which is Feyenoord. With this being his breakout season, he's already presented a great impression uh, in European football. One of his highlights this season was his performances in both legs against Rafael Leao that led to Feyenoord knocking out AC Milan in the Champions League. He pretty much kept him quiet at both times. So if you haven't seen it, there are compilation videos of that performance. So definitely look out for him because he showed a masterclass performance in those 2 games. And look, I watched a few compilations of him today, and I'm not gonna lie, he looks like a special talent. Of course, he's young, he's a bit raw, but even at 18 years of age, he'll be 19 in June. He looks like he could be a top defender for years to come. My only concern would be that it may be too soon to pursue the young fullback and bringing him to a club like Liverpool where the pressure is immense and the expectations are very, very high. But he's been playing in the Champions League. He's produced great performances against a Rafael Leao, who is known as one of the best left wingers in world football. So if you're old enough, you're good enough. You know the saying. So you can't rule that out just because he's a young player. He'll be 19, so in June. So he's not quite, inexperienced. He's been playing for about a couple of years now. So he's an interesting profile. And let's not forget who our coach is, Arne Slot. He will be aware of Reed's ability from his days at Feyenoord. Even if he wasn't coaching him actively, he would have been known of his talent through the ranks. And I'm sure he's actually probably played him when he was there in his final season, even if it was a few cameos here and there. So I would say watch this space because I can see us pursuing this player this summer. Um, we're not in a position to make big bids for ready-made players like Pedro Porro, as I mentioned previously. So this may be the route that we take to get the next big thing in European football because I do feel like he is a very, very special talent. So remember the name I'll say. And then the next player is Tino Livramento, a player that really shined in his Southampton days, but picked up a major injury that kept him out for a very long time. But since then, he's managed to get a move to Newcastle, and he's looking a partner. He's playing uh, back to his best now. He's shown his quality throughout the season. Quite recently, he played left back due to injuries that Newcastle are currently facing. So now he's shown a bit of versatility in his game. I've always liked him. think he's a very, very talented player. And if we were to pursue him, I wouldn't be mind about it. I'd be quite happy because I do feel like he's a very good player. However, I don't think Newcastle will want to part ways um, with a player like Livramento. ID is probably one of their prized assets. So unless Liverpool make a crazy bid, which is not like us, um, I'm not sure Liverpool will be in pursuit for Livramento. But I do like the player. I think he's a very talented player. Next player, Jules Conde. Now, don't think this is a realistic target, but I had to put him in the list. Maybe mentioning his name, I can probably put that energy out there in the atmosphere, and you never know. Tomorrow will be linked with him in the papers. But in all seriousness, if I could sign a right back, I think after Hakimi, it would probably be Kunde. He's probably regarded as more of a defensive right back. But in our team, I think he would add the balance that is needed on that right hand side. He's strong, he's aggressive, and for me, he's one of the best fullbacks in Europe. His stat this season, he's played 43 times, scored three goals, and has assisted 8 times. So not a bad season for a Frenchman, but I do feel like he'll be very difficult to attain. Seems very settled at Barcelona, and plus they would demand a huge transfer fee. So yeah, this is a no go, unfortunately. And the next player is Ola Aina. Now, he's had a fantastic season for Nottingham Forest, as they're currently third in the league and could qualify for the Champions League next summer. Um, but his contract expires in a few months' time. There hasn't been any news with regards to an extension, so could he be on the move? Man City were very strongly linked with him in January, so they could show interest in the player again this summer. This season, he's played 30 times with 2 goals and 1 assist, which is crazy because I feel like his tally would have been a lot higher. He seems to have been more influential in terms of how Forest have played. But I think Ola Aina is a good player. I think this season it's probably been his best season of his career. I don't think we'll be going in for him. In fact, I can see him signing a contract extension with Nottingham Forest. And for me, that would be the right decision for the player and also for the club. So I don't think there's anything to this rumor. Malo Gusto, the Chelsea fullback, has played a lot more games this season due to Reece James' injury woes. Stylistically, I really like the way Gusto plays. Very good defensive, but has energy for days. Bombs down that right hand side and has a very good delivery on him as well. However, you know, if you look at his stats this season, he's played 29 times, no goals, and only 2 assists. So not great in terms of the GA, but in terms of what he brings to the table, I think he would fit the profile of the type of right back that we should be looking after in this team. I don't think Chelsea would want to do any business with us. So this move is not a starter for us. Sacha Boey, now former Galatasaray defender, joined Bayern Munich last summer, and he's not had the best of debut seasons. In fact, a lot of fans are suggesting that he should be sold this summer. Now, does that mean we shouldn't target him because he's not had a great season for Bayern Munich? Well, not necessarily. As you might recall, Liverpool signed the player Ryan Gravenberch, who had the same sort of season as Bowie, and look how he's doing right now. Bowie, for me, in terms of what I've seen, especially more from his Galatasaray days, I think he's a good player. He could do well in the Premier League. I'm not sure if he's the right quality for us to be our primary target. But if Bayern were looking to sell him, which could be the case, I wouldn't be surprised if another Premier League team tries to sign him. But for Liverpool, I'm not quite sure. I think there are other players out there that would fit our system a bit better, in my opinion. And the final target is Vanderson, another Brazilian fullback on Liverpool's radar. This time it's Monaco's Vanderson, who's had a decent season this season for uh, the league on side. He's played 34 times with 2 goals and 4 assists. Stylistically very attack minded. So naturally, you have a bit of reservation with regards to his defensive duties. But from what I've seen of him, he looks like he can put in a tackle. He can shoot as well, so he's a very much an all-rounder. He looks like an interesting player. I don't know in terms of his availability, but he's definitely worth a punt. Of course, he's played in Europe now, so it's not like acquiring Wesley, where he's coming straight from Brazil. He might not be able to climatize to the European lifestyle. Um, he's doing that at Monaco, of course. Monaco and Liverpool are two different, parts of the world where, in terms of lifestyle, weather, and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, Liverpool are one of the elite clubs in European football. And I think Van would be a great fit. So he's another player that should be on the radar if we're not able to attain certain targets. But I do like the look of him. From what I've seen, he looks a very, very interesting player. Now, my verdict as a collective in terms of who should be signed as our defensive reinforcements this window. These are my realistic targets. So I've gone for Diomande and I've gone for Kerkez. I think Kerkez would come in as our left back next summer. He will be replacing Tsimikas in the team, who I think unfortunately will be sold in the next window. So it'll be Kerkez and Robertson. So he'll be learning the ropes with Robertson, which I feel like is going to be good for Kirk's development. And, it'll be good to have Robertson around the squad in terms of what he brings to the table, leadership quality, experience, and can play more of a bit part role, which would probably suit him at this stage of his career. And Diomande, for me, fits the bill in terms of having a player that is in a similar mode of Konate. So if Konate is not available, we don't miss that physicality in the backline. So I feel like Diomande will do really well in our team. Now, with there's so much uncertainty with regards to Trent and Van Dijk, what if those two players end up leaving? You can't rule it out because there's nothing to suggest that they will stay. So we have to paint the picture. Who do I think Liverpool should sign if those two were to be sold? Because the targets might be different now if that was the case. So this is my verdict if Van Dijk and Trent were to leave. For me, if Van Dijk was to be sold, Bastoni would be the guy that I'd want to replace him. Look, if Bastoni is available and he's genuinely available and Liverpool are interested in signing the player, I'd want him even if Van Dijk signed the contract extension because having Van Dijk and Bastoni as a combination would be, yeah, probably the best pairing in world football. And I'm not exaggerating there. And then you've got Konate, Kwanzaa, and Gomez as your backups. It's a good um, sort of centre back department there. So for me, I probably should have had Bastoni in the previous slide, but I don't know how realistic it is because I just don't see him leaving Italy. But if Van Dijk was to leave, we really have to try and find someone of adequate quality. And for me, it's Bastoni. He's the one that fits that bill. Perkins, I feel like he's the primary left back target. I did mention Hato previously. But I think for what we need in the team, we need a bit more of a tap-minded left back, and I think Kirkers fits that bill very, very well. And I've gone for Givario Reed, the final fullback. Maybe a surprise there. On paper, I probably would have gone for Poro, but I just don't know if we'd be willing to spend big bucks on a right back. I think Reed is a player that Arsenal is really well aware of because he's of his time at Feyenoord, and I feel like he could nurture him to be the complete right back. Because I feel like he has all the ability, all the credentials to be a top right back for years to come. He's got so much pace. His passing range is very good. He can shoot. Got a great engine, and more importantly, and this is no shade on Trent Alexander, he's a very good defender on one-on-one duels, especially. So he would bring that sort of security on that left-hand side, and I feel like that's the type of player we need to go for. We're not going to find a like-for-like replacement for Trent Alexander-Arnold. That's pretty much impossible, if I'm being brutally honest. So if you have Trent in the team, then you have to work around him where, Konate would have to put in a shift to cover that right hand side, and that allows Trent to roam around and, you know, influence the game of through his sort of passing range. But if you don't have that generational talent like Trent in your team, you have to go for an orthodox right back. And I think Reed is that type of player. He's not like the old school right back. I think he's a modern fullback, but he's very good defensively. So I've only seen him briefly, but from what I've seen, I've been very impressed. He's definitely someone I feel like could really do well at Liverpool. But that's just my take there. And that is the end of my Liverpool Squad Talk Defenders edition. So thank you so much for tuning in. I can see a few comments here, so let's go through the comments and then we'll take it there. Dara says, hi, buddy. Big up yourself, Dara. Thank you for tuning in. Uncle Roz says, big up family 100. Big up yourself, Uncle Roz. Thank you for your comment. Dara saying hello to Uncle Roz there. Abdul Rahim says, hi, Ozzy. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Big up yourself, Abdul Rahim. I hope you're doing well. Abdul Rahim says, we need investments into players. 100%. We certainly do. Liverpool 12th man, big up yourself, 12th man. He said, big up Oz. By the way, good luck us bringing Bastoni, considering how we've treated his Italian brethren. Yeah, you're not wrong there. I thought that might have been the sweetener to try and, convince him to come to England because his best mate's here. But yeah, you may have a point there. And then you've also mentioned also if Hakimi did that, then he sealed his fate of never being welcomed at Anfield. I never saw it. I don't think it was televised, but I did see sort of fan cams after the game on social media, and I think there was one or two people that said that that's what he did after the game. So yeah, you're 100% right. If he did that, then yeah, we'd never be linked to him because that is that's an awful thing to do. I don't care who you are. He's got no morals to do. That's a huge slap in the face. Shows his lack of respect for the club. You don't have to be from the club to show respect, but you've got to show some level of sportsmanship, and that's not something you do. So yeah, if that is the case, not impressed with that at all. Uh, Chibuki says any link to join. Not on today's show, unfortunately, but we will be doing upcoming shows where I allow the viewers to come on. So make sure to tune in, and yeah, you'll be able to come on the show and have your say as well. So big up for your comment. Thank you for tuning in. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, in terms of this Liverpool Squad Talk series that I'm doing, we'll be back next week. On Tuesday, we'll be doing the midfielders edition, and then on Wednesday, we'll be doing the attackers one. So there'll be a lot of talking points for both of those episodes. So please make sure you hit that notification bell. Feel free to join the stream and present your comments in the live chat. If you're watching a real replay, please leave your comments and let me know what you think of the show. And then we'll also do our match preview next week. Who are Liverpool playing next week on our return? Let's have a quick look. I think we're playing Everton, aren't we? Yes, it is. So it's not actually on that weekend. So I might do another transfer related show on the Thursday, and then we'll do a match preview Possibly on the 1st of April because we're playing Everton on a Wednesday and it's 2nd of April at 8 p.m. So we'll do the match preview of that game on the 1st of April. So yeah, feel free to look out for that one. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.